And welcome back to Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. And on this very cold Monday morning, I am joined by this gentleman here. We're going to be talking about the 1 cent sales tax proposal that is on the ballot for this Saturday. Early voting just ended the Saturday before. So good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing this morning?
Like I told you when you came in the door, I am cold.
Yes.
it's not supposed to be this cold. But if you introduce yourself, please.
Jason St. Pierre, principal at Walker High School. Been there for 15 years, and I just want to thank the citizens of Walker. It's a pleasure to be the principal. I love what I do, and the board members trust me, and just an honor to be the principal at Walker High School.
And so today, and obviously, well, before we get into all of that, you have been there, as you said, for well over a decade, and a lot of expansion done under your watch. I know that back, I think it was 2013, 2014, you were door to door.
Correct.
Looking for an extra millage. You got it. And of course, that especially the high school campus has expanded rapidly under your watch. So now we're talking about a 1 cent sales tax proposal dedicated to expanding salaries for teachers in the parish. So let's start off 32,000 feet. What are your feelings about this proposal that's on the ballot? Again, that'll be this Saturday.
Well, just to back up a little further, when I started at Walker High School, we had 1,000 kids. So in 15 years, we've more than doubled. So now we have 2,100 kids. So people are coming here. So my thoughts are, Livingston Parish is a bedroom community. People work outside the parish. They come here. The driving force is our school system. That's why people come here. And it drives our economy. It's the number one employer in the parish. Walmart's number two. And our number one industry in Livingston Parish is logging. I don't know if you knew that or not. But we are a great school system. We've been that way for a long time. I've been in the school system for 23 years. I'm not from Livingston. I was from Lutcher originally. But I've moved here, and I put my roots here, and I want to stay here, but that's what we are. So my feeling is we have to compensate our teachers because when I first got here, we were in the top 5.
Right. So if you go back to, and we keep a picture of this up front in the lobby, it was roughly 92, 93 when certain moves were made at the school board to increase teacher salaries, and it put them at number 1 in the area, or at least surpassed East Baton Rouge. I mean, that was a coup back then. And they kind of rode the wave for several decades. But now we have fallen back to, I believe it is last place in the 9 parish area around the capital region. So as a principal at a local high school, obviously you interact with teachers every day. So as taking that interaction, taking these people that work for you, obviously to educate these kids, let's talk about the tax. What are your feelings on it?
Well, I think it's necessary to keep up with the trend of, teachers, people are not going into education. So it's even a tighter recruiting field to get a certified teacher that went through a traditional setting like we always used to get. Back when I first became principal, we had job fairs where there were 15 positions and 250 people. So my thought is, how do you recruit them? Paying is one. And, you look at recruiting. In 2009, Raising Cane's went to Dallas to get better employees, and they had to raise their salaries. So how do you get better people, keep the quality of education? You have to pay them, and we're a 9th, and that's just a fact. We have to be able to get our teachers, and we recruit teachers, but it's hard to get a teacher to take a $10,000 pay cut to come into a school where the discipline is good, the education is good. It's hard for a teacher to do that when they're in another parish.
Sure.
And I will say this, it's hard in my backyard, right on Florida Boulevard. The Ascension Parish is recruiting teachers with billboards less than a half a mile from the school with a $10,000 raise.
Sure. So they're sneaking in.
Correct.
And trying to pull teachers out. Of course, Ascension, I believe, being number 1 or number 2 in the 9 parish area in Baton Rouge. So an interesting sort of comment that you brought up was that there used to be way more teachers than there were positions available. Obviously, that has flipped. How has that affected y'all on a sort of, I don't want to call it a granular level, but sort of a day-to-day level at Walker?
Well, the teaching profession, and by the way, I want to say this, thank you to all the teachers and the support staff, the bus drivers, the cafeteria, all our employees in Livingston Parish, but also the teachers. It was a good living. People can come in and do those, but I think we have unfunded mandates from the state, and there's a lot on a teacher. Your salary and your bonuses that you get are based off of 16-year-olds, or if you're in an elementary, off of a fourth grader. And if you don't perform and you have no control, so teaching, people used to get into teaching, and it's a calling, and I think our teachers, it's still a calling for our teachers, and they would go above and beyond. So I think recruiting teachers is very difficult because, number one, they're not there. My son-in-law graduated from Southeastern in December, and I counted the students in College of Education. It was 52. And so
it used to be a lot more.
And it used to be a lot more because I think teaching is tough.
Sure. And we have we've done interviews with Representative Buddy Mincy, who used to be a school board member, very focused on what you called the unfunded mandates. There are a lot of them. There are a lot of requirements on teachers. Whole lot of requirements and not a whole lot of change, at least here in Livingston Parish, to the pay. So, want to ask about, you talk about unfunded mandates, right? And for those who are unaware of what that means at home, it means that somebody, either federally or at the state, has mandated that you have to do these things. Sometimes it's training and time. Sometimes you have to fork over dollars for it. But they call them unfunded mandates because there was no mechanism to fund them before this rule came down. And, Representative Buddy Mincy is very focused on that. Obviously, you are too. But one of the things that is important in regard to is the budget. And most of the school board's budget, when I say most, you were discussing earlier, it's 91%, somewhere in there, is automatically locked up. And there's only about 10% to play with. So tell us a little bit about those raw numbers.
So the school board budget is roughly $249 million. 90% of that is spent on salary and benefits. So it leaves you with 10%, roughly $25 million. And I'm not a politician. I'm a principal of a school. But, I browse through different things on Facebook and different things like that. And people say, well, you can trim the fat because we already have the money. Being a principal for as long as I have, I've heard there's always been this notion that there's this pot of money at the school board that each superintendent is holding back. And I just don't see it. There's 10%, $25 million. You can't trim that much fat to have a raise that takes $22 million to give all of our employees a raise. That leaves you with $3 million to operate the school system, and it's just not feasible for that. So I think it's imperative for us to realize that we're not, the school board doesn't have this fictitious dollar amount that they're hiding away. They have to have reserves. That's mandated. And I wish people could see the mandates that's put on by the budget for school systems. But if, Walker High, you mentioned in 2013, we passed a millage for our school. At the time, we spent $32 million. Now, I spoke to an architect, our school at Walker High would cost $60. But if our school flooded, just one school, we have 48 schools in the parish. If one school flooded to replace Walker High School, it cost $60 million. And people don't realize FEMA reimbursed you. You have to have the money up front to pay. So I hear the things on Facebook and I hear people talking and dialoguing, and I don't comment. Maybe I should, but I want to say, there's things out there that's put in place and they're there for a reason. There's no pot of money we're holding on to so people can't get raises.
And I'm glad you brought that up. FEMA has switched to be more into the reimbursement business. They do not cover your expenses up front, and we've done a lot to try to explain that to people. That's why the sheriff has a reserve pot of money, City of Denham, the parish itself. Y'all, you have to be able to respond to these emergencies immediately, then you get reimbursed by FEMA. So that was a good point to bring up.
And one other thing I'd like to bring up is, people, I obviously work with the school board, the superintendent, and the supervisors, and people will say, well, the district at the central office is top heavy. Well, I have at 9 high schools, I have 1 supervisor, 1. And then I have a CTE director and another assistant on them. There's 3 people at the school board running the central office in high schools. There's 1 supervisor for middle schools, and there's 3 supervisors for elementaries. So at some point, I hear people say all these jobs at the school board, and I'm like, and I'm an administrator, so people saying, well, should I get the raise? And I spend so much time away from my families, and Walker has so many programs, it takes a lot of time and energy to do that, and I love doing it. I'm not complaining about it, but to have the manpower. For example, we have a accountability supervisor, Kelly LaBeouf. She's one person, runs the whole accountability system for Livingston Parish, 27,000 students. We just did pre-ACT for 9th and 10th graders, and ACT, she does elite. East Baton Rouge Parish has 8 of her. She's one by herself. So when people say let's trim the fat. Well, how much fat do we have to trim? There's too many people top heavy getting at the school board. Who are we going to cut? Because we're at a limited basis. And the last thing I'll say about that is this. Through the superintendents in the past, and this is true, the motto was that Livingston Parish, we do more with less.
Sure.
And I want to hammer that to we have always done more with less and happily done, and we're not complaining. And I want the viewers out there, I'm not complaining, and no one has ever complained about it. It's just who we are and what we do.
Sure. And I mean, a motto is a motto, right?
And I'll say that about our teachers and all of our employees, our custodians, our lunchroom ladies, our teachers. But our teachers in the classroom today, I call them, they're in the hole. They don't have time to turn on their TVs or radios or anything like that or on the internet and start listening to podcasts. They're in their teachers grinding every day to do that. And my daughter's a teacher. Sunday afternoon, she's doing lesson plans. It
Sure.
never stops. So the workload for a teacher is a lot.
Sure. And of course it is. And I mean, a lot of teachers are having to teach multiple classes, which is not out of the ordinary, but it keeps them busy. So as we wrap up sort of this budget conversation, and I want to move more to the sort of the teacher viewpoint, which is where you were going. I did want to ask you sort of specifically as a bridge into the teacher part, if you felt like Walker High was at, I guess you could say, flush with teachers, like you were at that point where you were like, we have enough teachers. Where are you now, and how far does that have to go?
Well, right now we're fully staffed. However, we have 9 teachers that are uncertified, and they're in the process of getting certified. Like I said before, the pool of teachers that are going to a traditional Southeastern teacher certification program, they're a diamond in the rough. They're not there, and they don't come. Most of them will go elementary. I think out of the 52 that I saw this past graduation class at Southeastern, 2 were high school. I talked to one of my supervisors. They went to a job fair, and there were 3 high school people there in a traditional program at a 4-year university. The state has done some things. They dropped the ACT score this semester to try to get teachers to come into. And I want to say that as teachers teach everybody. They teach doctors, lawyers, plant workers, everybody. And it's a noble profession. And I think people get into it because they're all called and they want to do the best thing. And our teachers are so strong and so willing to do what they need to do and work hard. But we are in a process of getting those teachers certified through iTeach, and we are training them, and we are putting them through trainings at our school and through the district to get those up to speed to where we can have qualified, certified, and teachers on our campuses.
Sure, and I do want to clarify that you are not the only school having to do that. We have heard from Superintendent Joe Murphy that there is a very large amount of uncertified teachers currently. They're working to get them certified, as you said, but it's just so hard to find these folks to come into this profession and to come into it here in Livingston Parish, where the pay has become the lowest in the capital region. So let's talk about that from a teacher standpoint. You've already mentioned that you have a billboard not very far from your home campus. What kind of conversations do you have with your teachers when things like this come up?
Well, I think culture is big, and that's what I strive. Because if you have a great culture at your school, people will want to stay. But I will tell you, we've had conversations. It's difficult, especially with the rhetoric you hear on both sides on when you get on Facebook is disheartening with teachers. They driving home, and this is the first time that I can remember in the parish where the negativity toward the teaching profession. So people see that. Why should I do that? And then when you have people outspoken against teachers, and they take it as being against the teachers. So I think teachers feel unappreciated when somebody comes in and says, y'all don't deserve it. And then you hear all the other stuff. And again, I'm not a politician, and I'm just a principal. But however, I do speak to my teachers and do that. And they are supportive of what the superintendent is trying to do, because it directly affects them. And to have a living wage in the parish, which drives our economic engine, it is the engine that drives our parish. And so the teachers do speak about it, and they do talk about it. We've talked about it the other day. And I'd like to say something. I read something on Rants and Raves about the superintendent mandating that principals and teachers call home and do all these different things. Not one time has any supervisor or superintendent, Mr. Murphy, come to our school, mandated anything to do for us. It's just voluntary what the teachers want to do, because they feel it's that important. And nobody's coerced us, mandated us to do anything. And I think teachers support the tax, obviously, because they get benefits from it and pay.
Sure. And of course, there are other things with regard to teacher expenses that continue to go up. Every government, business and governmental entities are dealing with retirement and insurance, the cost of which continues to increase. So that's been difficult on individuals as well. When you're talking about keeping or bringing in new teachers, keeping teachers here, that kind of thing, when you talked about culture at your high school, what about community? You're talking about some of these teachers who are leaving the parish who might have grown up here. You're talking about teachers going ahead and retiring because things can't keep up. And so, the face of the community is sort of changing. How do you feel about that?
Well, every community, you take, people don't like to do this, but you talk about sports. When Walker, Denham, Live Oak, Doyle, Holden, Springfield, when their teams make the playoffs and do different things, it brings a sense of community. And I think when you have to reproduce your students, or when you have your students at your school and they go off to college and come back and want to be teachers, that's the greatest testimony you can have as a school, to have a student who came through your school and now they're back at your school teaching school and just reproducing the culture in the next generation. So I think that is vitally important. The people of Walker, they love the school. They're supportive of us. They love what we're doing at the school with the programs and different things that we're doing and providing opportunity. That's our motto. It's where opportunity today means success tomorrow. So I think what we're doing at Walker and the parish for that matter, because the principals, obviously I know every principal in the parish, all 48 of them, and they work extremely hard to provide that culture in their campus, because they want, in Marpaw is just as important, the culture there is just as important as at Walker or Holden or wherever it is. And I think that's important, and the schools drive that in each community in the parish. So it's very important when students in our parish, in our community, come back and they want to teach in our parish and specifically come back to our schools. And it's a great thing. And I'm fixing to hire one student for next year, just in particular doing that, coming back to Walker because they want to teach at Walker High School.
Well, that's a cool story. And congratulations to that former student for coming into the teaching profession. So you've brought up a lot of things that people read on Facebook or things that people say on Facebook. And, of course, Facebook becoming one of these interesting places, sort of a den of discourse, if you will, if you can call it that.
It's the new barbershop.
Yeah, I like that. That's pretty good. When you have these people coming to you saying that we already pay enough at the register, we already pay enough extra when we buy a vehicle, that sort of thing, what do you say to them as sort of a counter argument to that in terms of why this is important?
Well, being here, I have to pay the same thing, and the economic engine to our parish, there's only two ways to do it. It's either property taxes, and people don't want to do that because they feel that the property tax is already high enough. And the only other thing, how does a government entity, any government entity, because they said we're voting for our own raise. Well, our whole check is coming from taxes. And so at some point, and I understand how people distrust government. I understand that. But Mr. Murphy and the previous superintendents, we're not politicians. We want to run a school system, and we're given, again, you go back to the money. I think we've done very well with the money that we've done because 90% of it's spent. You got 10% of it. And so, I've heard stuff. I think you go back to the parish council. Maybe they need to do a resident impact fee on every lot that's sold because it goes back to I've doubled in size in 15 years. So the next 15 years, what does that look like? And
Sure.
I know that's a whole nother topic about limiting subdivisions in the parish. But as long people are coming here for the schools,
Right.
and that's why people are building houses, and that's why they're building subdivisions, is because they can have a school. I met with LEDC. They're coming here bringing business in. What's the number one thing they use to bring business in Livingston Parish? The schools.
You can send your kids to school.
You can send your kids to school and have a good, safe education. And so I understand how people, when you go back and go buy a car and you have to pay. But the other counter argument is that you'd have to spend so much money. I don't have the figures. Like you'd have to spend $300,000 to exceed the raise, if you will. And I'm not sure about all the exact dollar figures with that because I hear people talking about it. But, I'm cognizant of taxes. I'm not. I wish we didn't do that. State government, you get aggravated at state government because the lottery was supposed to go to education. Well, how much is that? And then I hear people complaining, well, paying taxes enough for our roads are bad. We're the school system. We want to educate our kids, and we don't control the roads. But I think for us, I understand it. But until we invest in our community, and we're going to continue to lose teachers, and they're going to go other places, and then when your education system goes down, that's the attraction of people to come here. I don't want that to diminish.
Sure. Anything you'd like to say to wrap this up?
Well, I just I know it's contentious, and I know there's different points on every side, and I know people on both sides, obviously. But I want to say that our teachers work hard, and if there was another solution to trim fat or to do some other kind of way that's not burdensome to the taxpayer, we certainly would have done it. And I know people are cognizant of that as well. So I just want to say, if we could support our teachers, and let's continue to have a great educational system in Livingston Parish and lead the way. And Walker High, we want to do that and continue to do that in every school in our parish. And we want to give to our employees what they deserve in a meaningful wage where they can have a living wage, where they can earn a living and live comfortably in our parish.
Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate you taking the time. If you'll reintroduce yourself as we head out.
Jason St. Pierre, principal at Walker High School.
And my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys out there for watching. This is the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. Please remember the news is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. One last time, we appreciate you joining us. However you feel, please go out and vote this Saturday. And, of course, if you're in District 5, there's also a parish council race in that district as well. We hope you have a great week. Stay warm, and we'll see you next time.